Hi guys, this is Shannon with Create Kids Couture. I am showing y'all today how to do the sleeveless and flutter sleeve Tawny editions. We're going to start out today first with our sleeveless version, and it's very easy. If you've made a Blanche or a Maggie or anything like that, you're going to be doing the same technique, which we call the burrito roll kind of technique. What you'll do is take your, with your bodice right side up, you're going to take your main and your lining, and you're going to separate it. Just kind of open it up like this, okay? And you're going to take the opposite end of your fabric, the opposite sleeve, and you're going to begin to roll it up towards that open area, okay? And now you're going to sandwich in between. Bring that lining back up, and you're going to just start pinning. You're going to pin all the way around. Okay, I hate using pins, so I don't use very many, but if you're more comfortable with pins, then yes, I recommend using them. Just put a couple of pins here just to keep it straight. And now we're going to sew this area. We're going to sew the sleeve right here, okay? And you'll sew it using just the same seam allowance, the 3/8 seam allowance. You want to make sure that you're not getting any of the other fabric that you rolled up. Make sure you're not catching that in your stitching. And now we're going to just clip our threads. And what you'll do now is open this up on the bottom here, and you're going to just start pulling that rolled up piece that you had in there. Get it all straightened out. Okay, and so now we've got one side done, and you can see where it's nice and stitched now. Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing to the other side. I'll turn it around so y'all can see it a little bit better. You're going to separate, again, just like we did. Now we're going to take the side that we just finished sewing, and you're going to do the same thing to it. You're going to roll it up, and you're going to sandwich it in between the lining and the main, and do the same thing. We're going to stick some pins in here. And then we're just going to sew it exactly like we just did on the other side. It's a very simple technique. It's hard to wrap your head around it when you first start, but once you've done it a couple of times, you could do it in your sleep. It's extremely simple. So we'll go ahead and sew this up real quick, exactly like we just did for the other side. Okay, trim the threads. And again, just like we just did, reach in and pull. So you're going to separate the lining and the main at the front, and just pull that section out. Get it all nice and straight. And now you have both of your armholes are now completely sewn shut, okay, like that. And then you just continue on with the pattern the same way. They did have you doing it in the pattern. I can't remember what step it was, but you'll basically just take your front lining or front bodice and separate it, and take the back bodice, separate it. You'll lay those two on top of each other so you have main and linings matched up, and then you'll sew down here, and you'll sew on this side, and then there's your completed front bodice. Now, the next thing we wanted to show you, because many of you asked for it, was how to do a flutter sleeve. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. To do your flutter, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your front bodice, you're going to take a ruler, and you're going to mark just right around the front bodice area. You're going to just place a mark right here and a mark right here, and this is just marking where your flutters will stop and begin. Now take that, fold it in half, okay, and you want to just mark where you just placed your mark on your front bodice. You want to place a mark on the back bodice as well in the exact same spot. So you've got a spot right here and a spot right here, if you can see that. And this is going to be where your flutter, when you go to pin your flutter, you will stop and start your flutters right here, and then it'll be gathered in this section, right? So we will do that for our other side. I've already got my front bodice marked, so now I'm going to take it and mark right there. So I've got my things matched, and the same way we did our sleeveless version is going to be, we're going to do almost the exact same technique with that. First, you're going to take your flutter piece and you're going to fold it in half, mark the center with a pin, and this just marks the center of your flutter. You're going to separate your main and your lining. We're going to pin the center of our flutter to the center seam of our bodice right here, right there where that shoulder seam is. And then we're going to take our ends and we're going to pin them right over the marks we just made. I don't know if you can see this mark. It's very hard to see. But you're going to pin the end of your flutter sleeve right there. And then you're going to pin the other end of your flutter sleeve with the other mark you just made. There you go. And now we're just going to pull our threads to gather it evenly. If I can find my thread. It always works better when I have my glasses on, but of course I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see. So just gather your flutter sleeve up all the way to the center there. Just make sure it's nice and even. And just kind of spread your gathers out a little bit. You can pop a couple of pins in there, hold it in place. Whoops. We're going to do the same thing for the other side. I just kind of like to gather a little bit at a time and then just kind of spread it out so it's nice and even. Now you want to sew a basting stitch right along the edge of your flutter, okay? That just kind of keeps your flutter in place so it doesn't move around when you're sewing it to the with the stay stitch. So, oops, there you go. I recommend trying to stay within the seam allowance of your gathering stitch if possible. That just helps that your stitching won't show when you go to sew it permanently on. But it's hard, sometimes it's hard to stay within that stay stitch and or that seam allowance, and if you get out a little bit, that's okay. Okay, so our flutter sleeve is now basted on. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment and you know, in the post, and Leah or myself can come in and answer any questions or help fix any confusion. So you have your flutter sleeve sewn on. It's basted on there. Okay. What you're going to do now, same thing we did with the sleeveless version. You're going to take your opposite end, and you're going to start rolling it up, and you want to kind of sandwich it in between the main and the lining, and then bring your lining up and over, and you're going to match up your shoulder seams here, and go ahead and pin all the way around. Like I said, I hate to pin, so I definitely recommend, if you're still a little new to sewing, to use as many pins as you possibly can. Once you've been sewing for a while, you don't have to use as many if you don't want to. Make sure you've got all your opposite end tucked out of the way. And now we're going to sew with a stay stitch. You're going to sew all the way around this seam right here. And I've loved seeing all of the fabrics that y'all have been using for your Tawnies during the sew along. You're inspiring me to make a ton more. I've already made probably a million Tawnies already, but y'all make me want to get out and sew more. So now you're going to trim your threads, and exactly like we did with the sleeveless version, you're going to open up your bodice main and your bodice lining and just pull that rolled up area. And it can get a little bit tight when you're trying to pull that flutter sleeve through, but just go slowly and it comes out. I promise there's plenty of space in there. Okay. And your flutter sleeve is now on one side. You can see how it is right there. It's nice and sewn on, it's centered, so when you fold your bodice and you sew the sides, it's going to be nice and cute there. I'll do the remaining one real quick just to show you. We do the same thing that we just did. Mark your center pin, if you can see what you're doing, where obviously I can't. Okay, we're going to pin right there. And again, pin your end to your mark that was made, so you know where to start and stop your flutter sleeve. Pin the other one. And then just pull the ends together. Make them nice and even there. Okay, and do the same for the other end. This is all just repeating what we just did for the other side. And the sleeveless version and the flutter version, they're absolutely perfect for spring and summer. And if you're like us, I'm in Texas, it's already 300 degrees outside. We got like 2 days worth of winter, so my girls didn't get to use their long sleeve versions very much. We're just gonna sew this down real quick. So you want to try to stay in that seam allowance. Sometimes it can be hard if you're like me, and I use a smaller seam allowance when I'm doing my gathers, so but I try to still stay in there. Okay, trim all your threads. I I can't stand threads. It's a pet peeve. I hate having them all over the place. Alright, now we're going to do the same thing we just did. Separate your main and your lining. Come the opposite, start on the opposite sleeve, and we're going to roll it up. Make sure you tuck it all out of the way. Bring your lining up and over. Match your center seams. And then just come around here. Pin. Make sure, again, when you're sewing, not to catch any of the stuff that you've just rolled up in your seam, because then you're going to be hanging out with your seam ripper, and nobody likes to do that. Keep going. Sew this up, and this will be our last arm that we need to do. Things flying everywhere. Alright, now you're going to just trim your threads and then unfold it like we've been doing. Separate your main and your bodice. Grab this rolled up section and just pull it. And now you've got your flutter sleeves attached to your bodice. So you got your front bodice, and here's the back. And again, you'll just continue on with the pattern on how to attach your side seams and close those in. You know, separate the front and the main, and then your back main and lining, and you'll sew down this edge, long edge right here, sew down this long edge, and that gives you a completed bodice. But I hope this helps. Like I said, if you have any questions, just ask myself or Leah, and we will be more than happy to help walk you through it again. Thanks, ladies.